Hey, how would you like fresh strength? How would you like renewed strength? How would you like a source of strength that is renewable, perpetual, durable? How would you like a healthy soul? Well, today is a very, very special day, at least for me, and I'm going to ask you to indulge me because I'm going to share something really exciting that's unfolding right now. Welcome to Growing in the Gospel. I'm Pastor Cary, and today we're going to take a break from our Psalms. We're in between Psalms. Tomorrow we're going to start Psalm 102, but today I want to talk to you about strength and about how to find steady strength and a healthy soul. And in particular, that's because today, for over a year, a little more than a year, I've been working on a project with Moody Publishers. About 18 months ago, they reached out to me, and I'll tell you that story in a moment. But today is the launch day for Steady Strength, Reversing Ministry's Dangerous Drift Toward Depletion. This is about a 200-page book. It's aimed at spiritual leaders, pastors, and anyone in leadership, which is amazing because we've just been studying Psalm 101, which is a leadership psalm. But this book was written from a heart that has been chasing after God for 34 years in ministry to renew strength and to seek his strength. And so the theme of the book really is how to cultivate a healthy soul. And I want to do two things today. I want to tell you a little bit of the story and the content of the book, and then I would like to read you a part of the introduction, just the opening story. And so that's why I say indulge me. I love to write books. I don't like to sell books. But how nutty would it be to write a book and not want to tell anybody about it? And so as of today, this book is available wherever books are sold. And I think the audio book as well will be available soon. And I did the recording on the audio as well. So if you like the sound of my voice, maybe consider the audio. If you don't like the sound of my voice, then definitely don't do the audio. But it's available digitally and in paperback anywhere you like to buy books. So I want to tell you the story. I did the first project with Moody a few years ago, back actually before the pandemic, and it released during the pandemic. It's called Stop Trying, How to Receive, Not Achieve Your Real Identity. It's a book about gospel identity, growing up in Christ, and letting Jesus say who I am instead of the horizontal identity structures that we even talked about yesterday. So that project came through, and we were conversing. I was conversing with the acquisitions editor at Moody, Trillia Newbell. Trillia is a phenomenal author and just a great lady. And we were talking about ideas, and she called me and said, would you consider writing a book to pastors? And I said, sure. Where did that idea come from? And she said, well, we feel like pastors and spiritual leaders, broadly speaking, are in trouble, that today there's a mass exodus from ministry. And as a sidebar, if you're not a pastor or a spiritual leader, I hope you have one, and I hope you will be praying for those that you know, because it is a spiritual battle. And that's kind of the essence of this book. So anyway, I said to Trillia, I would never have assigned that to myself because I still feel like I'm very much growing up in it and understanding it. And yet, my agent said, well, have you looked in the mirror lately? So I'm like, thanks, Cynthia. So at 54, the publishers asked me to write a book to pastors, and I found that to be a great privilege. And so for the last year, I have been praying intensely in private, personal times and setting aside hours to invest, personal time again, mostly, into writing a book to pastors and spiritual leaders, and really anybody that wants to understand the dynamics of depletion and how to restore and renew our souls. It was a privilege to write this book. I felt like Satan fought me every step of the way. I enjoyed it for the most part. I share a lot of fun and interesting stories and a lot of metaphors and illustrations, many, many scriptural passages and poignant scriptural stories that carry forward to how do we cultivate a healthy soul facing the unique dynamics of ministry, gospel ministry in the 21st century. So that's a little bit about the story. We got this project done. It's been at press for the last several months, and it's available today. And so I'm excited about that because you work hard on these kinds of things, and you just pray. You pray that they'll be a blessing to the people that receive them. There was not a page of this book that isn't saturated in prayer. Lord, give me the words that you want your leaders, your spiritual shepherds, to hear, to receive. I would say the book is also very applicable if you are praying for or love a spiritual leader, just to understand. It will be applicable for you, as well as understanding the unique challenges that the spiritual leaders in your life face. So anyway, pray with me. Many of you are my friends, and you are in this with me in sort of a prayer encouraging world of doing gospel ministry together. We do this together. Many of you are sharing videos on this channel. So I hope you will pray with me that God will use this book to help people stay in the ministry, maybe to help Christians understand the flow of spiritual battle, and how that when we hit discouraging times, these are not detrimental. They don't have to be destructive. We can renew. We can find a fresh resource of strength in Jesus. Isaiah 40:29-31. He gives power to the faint, to those that have no might. He increaseth strength. Those who wait on the Lord, they that wait upon the Lord, shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And so God wants to renew your strength on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. He wants to walk with you through whatever you're going through, and he wants to be a source, a wellspring of living water within you. I am the vine, you are the branches. Abide in me, Jesus said. Without me, you can do nothing. We so need that abiding relationship with Jesus. Now, let me talk to you about the content of the book, because the book is broken down into 3 parts. Part 1 is cultivating a strong core, and it deals with the inspirational and motivational aspects of our core. What drives us? What do we expect? Some of our depletion, some of the times we hit walls, some of the times we're really despairing or disappointed in life, is just a function of we did not get what we expect or where we expect. And so ministry is unique in that sense, in that we need to come into it with real biblical definitions of our expectations, of surrender, of our own insufficiency, of what is success, what are we truly chasing, what truly drives us and motivates us and stirs us, and what is a sustainable, durable, renewable motivation, because your motivation, your motivational and aspirational center is so critical to the strength that you experience in life, spiritual, emotional, and psychological. So that's part 1, cultivating a strong core. Part 2 is nurturing a flourishing soul. And in part 2, we cover 6 life-giving practices, 6 practices that renew and sustain strength. We talk about the negative flow of ministry. It would also apply to people that are like first responders or law enforcement officers or military or hospice workers or emergency care workers or nurses and doctors, people that are dealing with trauma and difficulty over and over and over, or maybe in the presence of a lot of death or negativity, just a steady stream or a river of negativity, and how that draws from us, how that really can deplete us and empty us. What do we do? In a world, in a vocation that is high expenditure, we need high renewal. We need high counterbalancing of those depletions or those expenditures. So then we talk about what does that look like in practice? Not just the motivational and aspirational, biblical, philosophical insides, but just lifestyle. How do we renew? What are the practices? One of my favorite parts of part 2 is when we talk about pursuing body and brain wellness, because really sometimes we make our depletion simply a spiritual problem, and it is always, at least in part, but it's also a psychological and emotional problem, and it's a physiological problem. So the management of our renewal has to do with our body and our soul and our spirit. And we really unpack a lot of the physiological aspects of what's going on in us when we're depleted, and how does that make us feel emotionally and psychologically? How does our brain maybe be, how do we put our body and brain in the position that it wears us down emotionally and psychologically, so that then affects us spiritually? And we think it's all spiritual. In reality, it may not be spiritual. It may be the very least bit spiritual and mostly physiological. It can be. It's possible. So I like that about part 2, and we talk about the power of cultivating health in all 3 areas: body, soul, and spirit. And then part 3, and that's just the very end of the book, It's about leading a healthy culture. The case that I want to make in the end of the book is that our health, our core health, is also impacted by the culture in which we work. If we are living with toxicity and division and problematic exteriors, if we are surrounded by problematic relationships and division and contention and strife wears us down. It zaps our strength. And so in a holistic way, we need to, especially in ministry environments, we need to cultivate healthy cultures that are life-giving and mutually encouraging and sustaining, and that are giving strength to and from. I make the case in the closing parts of the book that our culture as leaders is something we cultivate, but then it's also something that we consume. So that is a little bit of the overview of Steady Strength, and I believe that anybody that reads it will be blessed in terms of how to renew strength in the Lord. So I want to close today very quickly by just taking a few minutes to read you the opening story. There's a tiny feather stuck on the outside of the picture window in my breakfast nook. It's been there a few weeks, left intentionally to remind me of a traumatic morning that I shared with a random robin. It was about 7 a.m. on a pleasant fall morning. Beyond the picture window of our breakfast nook, the sun rose over the distant ridge. Fresh coffee in hand, I was 45 minutes into my morning study at our kitchen table when my frame of mind was rattled by a loud thud. Oh no, not again. A robin had hit the window. I bemoaned the death of yet another feathered friend. It's not uncommon to find the recent remains of an unfortunate flyer on our sidewalk. I peered out the window to look at the victim. Let's call the bird Ralph, for no specific reason. To my great surprise, Ralph was not dead. He was hunkered down, staring straight ahead. Other than his tiny chest heaving in and out, there was no other movement. Well, he'll soon be dead, I imagined. I imagined I'd be giving him a brief but respectable send-off into bird eternity. Then I noticed dozens of other robins playing in the front yard, playfully diving from branch to branch, singing and darting through the crisp morning air. My front yard was like a playful playground full of first graders at recess. This wild, beautiful artistry had been unfolding in the background of my study time, but now my attention was thoroughly arrested. As the erratic, syncopated dance around him continued, Ralph stared, likely dying, certain he would never fly again, waiting for the end to come. After a few moments, his friends began interacting with him, or so it appeared. 2 or 3 at a time, the robins would dive into the yard, land in the grass near the sidewalk, bounce a little, tweet some, and then fly away quickly. It appeared they were communicating. Are they making fun of him or cheering him on? If it were my brothers, the squawking would have been jeering. Hey, everybody, did you see Cary? He hit the window, LOL. They would have posted a video of it on social media. Either way, Ralph was utterly unresponsive, sitting, staring, still breathing. A full 20 minutes passed, and I was mesmerized. Almost imperceptibly, Ralph made the slightest of movements. He hopped about half an inch. No wings, no risk. Several more moments passed as the cacophony and choreography of his fellow robins continued. Then, there it was, Ralph hopped again. Afraid to fly. Alive, but flummoxed. Who wouldn't be? Imagine flying through the open sky and suddenly hitting a transparent barrier that knocked all reason out of you. My guess was that Ralph was planning to play it safe for the rest of his life. Flying is for the, well, that doesn't work here. Why couldn't I look away? More strangely, why had I left the tiny feather he deposited on my breakfast nook window? Well, because I'm a lot like Ralph. I've been there, soaring forward in ministry and life, imagining nothing but hopeful and clear skies, and then wham, the next thing I know, I wake up on a sidewalk wondering where the skies went. How many ministry walls have I hit? I stopped counting. How many invisible barriers have knocked me dizzy and left me afraid to do what I was called to do? Some walls are spiritual, others are emotional or relational, and others are physical or material. As a pastor or ministry leader or a Christian, do you ever feel like Ralph? Me too. Well, I proceed to explain how that we can be afraid to fly once we've hit a window, and I begin to unfold the introduction to the book. And then I come back to the story of Ralph at the end. So here it is. So back to Ralph. Do you know what happened? He hopped a few more times and sat a little while, and his friends continued their dive patterns. And after 30 minutes of reorientation and 10 minutes of tentative hopping, Ralph found the edge of the sidewalk and leapt into the grass. He didn't cover much ground. 10 minutes resulted in 10 inches, but the following 5 minutes resulted in 15 feet as Ralph's confidence revived. I couldn't help but cheer him on. Come on, man, fly. You can't hop forever. Give it another shot. You can tell I was emotionally invested at this point. I hoped against hope that Ralph would resume doing what he was created to do. Imagine having wings, but being afraid to use them. Imagine having a call and giving up on it too soon. Well, Ralph didn't give up. I can't explain his avian logic, but without warning, he suddenly launched into the air and soared away. In one fear-defying split second, he returned to the sky, to his true nature, and I'm pretty sure I heard his friends celebrating. I have not heard from Ralph since, so I imagine he is doing well. How about you? You may be dazed, but you were designed to soar on strong wings of grace. While you may need to catch your breath and reframe your heart, there can be wellness and sustained strength in your future. You can pastor from fullness. There is a strong, steady approach to this tumultuous vocation. Each word of this text is accompanied by a prayer for you that our time together will help you regain equilibrium. Our calling is always challenging, often confusing, but also wonderfully rewarding. So that's just a sampling of the introduction of Steady Strength. It dovetails perfectly with the psalm we're going to start tomorrow, Psalm 102. It is a psalm for the overwhelmed. So if you are overwhelmed, don't miss tomorrow and forward the next couple weeks as we study Psalm 102. And as always, it will be on the playlist here on the Growing in the Gospel channel for Psalm 102. Now, today I told you about the book, Steady Strength. It's available as of today. So you want to help me spread the word and help pastors grow healthy in our modern culture? I hope you will. What can you do? First, you can share the video and especially send it to a pastor or a spiritual leader, especially one that's discouraged. Second, you could consider picking up a copy of the book or maybe getting a copy for your pastor or someone you love that's in the ministry of the gospel. It will encourage them. Thirdly, you could just pray. Pray that God will use this resource to help people stay in the ministry, to be encouraged in the ministry, and to trust the Lord and what He's doing in their lives. So I hope you'll take the journey with me. I hope you'll share the video, maybe post a comment, or maybe post a prayer for a spiritual leader down below. In fact, let's just do that. Let's make this a channel thing where once you've seen this video, you go down to the bottom and you just write a line or two or a paragraph or two if you want to, praying for your pastor, for your spiritual leader. And let's uphold spiritual leaders in prayer and ask God to work in their lives, especially through this resource. Now, I get it. If you're the cynic, and I'm sometimes a cynic, you're like, okay, Cary's trying to sell me a book. If that's how you feel, don't do any of this. Don't buy it. Don't do any of this. Okay, that's not the point. I'm certainly not getting wealthy off of these types of things. They are enormous hard work. They are a big burden to me. I want the message to get out, and I'm simply praying that God will use it to bless and encourage His servants. He's the one that opened the door for me to write this project. So if you're cynical, be cynical towards Him because I'm simply living in obedience to Him. So anyway, otherwise, pray. And thanks for being my friend and encourager. Post a comment, post a prayer, and share the video. And stick around. We're going to start Psalm 102 tomorrow. Happy Tuesday. Have a great day. I'm praying for you. Thanks for taking the journey with me. Hey, one more thing you could do. You could post a review after you read the book on Amazon or Goodreads. Jot a paragraph and give the book a review. That will help it travel further. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.